Good afternoon, passengers. Welcome to Martel Air. My name's Amanda, and I'll be your pilot for today. We're just beginning boarding for flight number 9 from Orbost to Merimbula, so grab your seats while I finish up the last steps of the pre-flight inspections of this Cessna Grand Caravan, the pride of the Martel Air fleet. Before engine start checklist. Pre-flight inspection complete. Parking brake handle set. Electrical systems off. Ignition switch normal. Fuel tank selectors both on. Bleed air heat switch off. Power lever idle. Prop RPM to max. Fuel condition lever to shut off. Fuel shut off knob push in on. Battery switch on. Cabin lights on. Cockpit lighting set. Flaps up. No smoking light on. Before engine start checklist complete. The weather today is clear and sunny with absolutely no clouds visible, and we'll be cruising at an altitude of 3,000 to 4,000 feet, flying over the southeast Australian coastline. Your cabin crew today is me, and your emergency exits are located to the back of the cabin where you entered the plane. I also have a door up here by me, so if you see me leave, please follow me quickly. Our in-flight catering services are provided by our wonderful passengers, so I hope you pack something interesting. Engine start checklist. Battery switch on, beacon light on, avionics 1 on. Bus volts check. Emergency power lever normal. Inertial separator handle to bypass. EIS readings check. Propeller area clear. Fuel boost switch on. Fuel boost on check. Fuel pressure low not shown. Fuel flow 0. Starter switch to start. Ignition on check. Oil PSI check. NG stable. Fuel condition lever to low idle. Fuel flow check. NG climbing. NG stable. Starter switch off. EIS readings check. Generator load check. Battery amps charging. Fuel boost switch normal. Avionics 2 on. Nav lights on. Engine start checklist complete. We're now ready for departure, so please fasten your seatbelts and turn off your devices, apart from those used to watch this stream. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. Before taxi checklist. Taxi lights on. Seatbelt lights on. Taxi clearance. So what runway are we using today? Well, it looks like the windsock is blowing gently towards us, so I guess that means we're using the one that's going towards it. Orbost traffic, Martel 09, taxiing to runway 07 for takeoff. Taxi clearance. Check. Nav source. Set. Proper RPM. Minimum. Fuel condition. Low idle. Parking brake handle. Release. Before taxi checklist complete. Now it is almost entirely dirt out here, so we will not be hunting for taxiways because there aren't any. Oh, and important check to do before the plane starts moving. Co-pilot check. Lovely, thank you, Wing Commander Lamington. Okay, let's taxi down towards this runway. The joy of middle of nowhere little airports that, much like Mount Beauty, might not deserve the name of airport, but are wonderful little airstrips and aerodromes. And this is the sort of one that the inertial separator was made for, because there's dirt and things that we're currently just driving over, and I'd really rather not have them inside the engine. We might be keeping the inertial separator on all the way till the after takeoff checklists. And of course it is a little harder to taxi on dirt, loves to just catch a little uneven spot and just not quite go up the hill unless you're at full or at not quite enough power. If we were using these power settings to taxi on tarmac, we would probably be doing about 40 knots. Here we are at runway 07. Before takeoff checklist. Parking brake set. Altimeter QNH set. Standby flight instruments check. Fuel boost switch normal. Fuel tank selectors both on. Fuel quantity check. Fuel shutoff knob push on. Standby alt power on. Anti-ice system, it is 21 degrees, so anti-ice not required. Inertial separator handle is on bypass. Autopilot. Altimeter set to 4,000 feet for cruise. Flight level change mode engaged. Set to VY. Heading mode engaged. Set to runway heading and bank mode engaged. And coughing, because of course that would come on while I'm streaming. Transponder on alt. Flaps, takeoff position. Takeoff clearance. Orbost traffic, Martel 09, taking off runway 07 for an east departure. Takeoff clearance check. Strobe light on. Landing lights on. Seatbelt light on. Parking brake release. Fuel condition high idle. Prop RPM to max. Before takeoff checklist complete. Double check the runway that nobody's ignored my calls. Ready for takeoff. And again we have a massively tiny runway. Once I've lined up, well, we'll wait for this car ahead of us to get off the damn runway. But might just get a little external view while we're parked on the runway, since we're still on the ground and we can do that. This runway is about as wide as the wingspan. So, that would explain the fun we had with landing on the way in. This runway is about the size of the plane. Okay. And smoothly engage the power. Lovely big turboprop. And clear of obstacles, flaps up. As we continue the climb. Let's turn over towards our nav path. And there we go. Little bit windy as we get up above the tree line, but that's okay. So, hello to everybody watching live. Looks like we've got about 3 passengers at the moment, which is lovely. As we climb out of Orbost, we can see, so where last week we finished at the end of 90 Mile Beach with its much more than 90 miles, we are now continuing along the coast and seeing all the lovely, interesting, wibbly bits that aren't just beach. Depending on how well Microsoft Flight Sim is doing at modelling these various things, we might even get to see some lovely lighthouses. Cruise climb checklist. Anti-ice system not required. Inertial separator handle to normal. Prop RPM to 1750. And power to 95% NG. ITT check. And landing lights off. Centre, Martel 09 is type Cessna Caravan, 7 miles east of Orbost, 4,000 feet. Request flight following. Squawk 5202, Martel 09. Roger, Martel 09. And as we get out into the more eastern stretches of eastern Victoria, I have to admit that we're a little bit outside the areas that I have direct experience with. Orbost is kind of the eastern limit of where we regularly got to when I lived in Gippsland, because I spent most of the time in Sale, especially given that I was in my early teens and not exactly driving everywhere. But, yeah, we have more. There is just more beach. It just happens to be separated by a couple of rocky outcroppings from the beach corporate headquarters of 90 Mile Beach. And more where just you get forest leading directly into the sea. Which, it gets interesting in this sort of countryside where you've just got forest, beach, ocean. Because a lot of this will be eucalypt forest as well, which is terrifyingly flammable, as has been previously rambled about. Holding 4,000 feet nicely, bit of a crosswind. I've set up the GPS navigation to take us along the coast, following where there is a stream of lighthouses and such on the outcroppings, because it's a bit of a high traffic area when you've got any shipping coming in from the Pacific going to Melbourne and Geelong, which is west of us, and you've got all of these rocky outcroppings that just want to catch you out, because you're sailing along this nice straight coastline, nice and straight, and then boom, just bit sticking out as far as it can into the ocean, and then it goes away again. So having lighthouses on those bits, kind of a good idea. And we've got Wing Commander Lamington attentively watching the instruments as always. He is the goodest co-pilot. And of course our lovely invisible passengers. Cruise checklist. Seatbelt light off. Don't need to keep you people strapped in all the time, I hope. Anti-ice system not required. Inertial separator normal. Prop RPM. I'll keep it at about 1750. And throttle to about 89. I've been continuing my experiments in what makes for good, efficient flight with this engine and this plane, and working out just what settings will get us somewhere in a reasonable time, but also without completely draining the fuel tank. And yes, I am very glad to have worked out how to map a bark sound to one of my keybinds. Because now, if I start to screw up, Wing Commander Lamington can let me know. Which is just, you know, I'm enjoying the flavour that the goodest co-pilot adds to the stream. Cross-check the backup instruments. Actually working out how to use these backup instruments is fun, and if I ever actually need to fly with them, it's going to be interesting having them all the way down in this corner and also trying to see out the windscreen. I think it'll be a case of a lot of watching, check, watching, check, because usually if you're flying with the manual instruments, steam gauges as they're often called, which some people get pedantic about how they're not actually steam powered anymore, blah blah blah, but in a lot of aviation parlance, these things are glass and these things are steam, and it's just how you refer to the two of them. And I think steam gauge is a charming name for them, if nothing else. Someone has actually made a mod to do the older steam gauge version of the Grand Caravan, which I must admit could be a fun one to try. It's not cheap. A lot of the custom planes that people have worked up for Microsoft Flight Sim tend to be about the price of a normal video game on its own. I'm trying not to spend huge amounts of money on Flight Sim after paying nearly $100 for the base game, but you know, this is a thing that when the extra content is being made by people who are actually putting in the work and not just corporations, it's actually nice to see them getting a good amount of money back for what they're putting into making things for Flight Sim. I just can't afford it. And it's not like this stream is going to be even slightly a revenue stream for at least until pigs fly. I was checking the eligibility criteria for any of the YouTube monetization stuff, and haha, no. I think I'm at about 13 subscribers at the moment. I would need a couple of thousand for the first monetization. I'm not doing this for like the potential of making money out of the stream, because honestly that just sounds stressful. Like, it's never going to be a huge a main income stream for me at all. I've just noticed that we've got some really low clouds at the moment, because we're sitting at 4,000 and there's some clouds at 2,000 or 3,000. That's borderline fog. That is fascinating. But yes, at this stage, if I was to do the non-YouTube monetization things, so Coffee, Patreon, those sorts of things, I never know if Coffee is Coffee or Ko-fi. It's Ko-fi, which feels like it wants to be Coffee, but looks like Ko-fi, and is just confusing. I'm basically at the point where if I got anything from those, it would just be going back into the channel of maybe I get some plane upgrades, maybe some equipment upgrades. I'm continuing to work on the settings that control the sound quality, because this mic is actually reasonable quality. It's just getting all of the OBS and voice mod settings just right, such that I can actually make it work properly. And here we have our first little spit of land, and I think we've got a lighthouse down there, but I don't know if it's actually modelled. But anyway, another one of those lovely... The coast is fairly straight, and then it just sticks out into the water for reasons of stubbornness. I can definitely relate to this. Just checking all the engine. That's all looking about right. Lovely. Okay, so we've got a little cluster of buildings there, but I don't know if they've actually modelled the lighthouse. What a pity. Now, if we were doing a night flight, there you could actually see that there are actually some towns along here, but with the amount of just tree, it's hard to see them when it's not time for city lights taking over everything. And yes, we do get into a lot of pokey bits as we start to round the corner of Southeast Australia coming up. And we're going to be getting to the New South Wales border. Let me just check my map. So we'll be crossing back from Victoria into New South Wales about halfway along this flight. And yeah, this is all fascinatingly empty. There are small towns, there's no cities. You get lovely little fairy-like lines through the forests as we get the highways, which, if you're doing night flying with visual navigation, are one of your best friends. I've done a few pure visual flights just on my own time, and yeah, pure visual navigation is an interesting one, especially if you've got a plane with very basic instruments, no GPS, and a tendency to roll to the left if you're not paying attention, because this is some of the test flying in the Fokker triplane. Engine instruments are all looking good. My Commander Lamington is happy. That is the important test. It'll be interesting to see. I'm considering adding one or two more planes to the Martel Air hangar, as it were. Ahoy there. An unfamiliar face in the chat, how exciting. Yeah, so at some point there may be flights in one or two other planes. I've already talked about the flights in the Fokker triplane airshow replica, which I finished designing my... The unfamiliar face was in fact a familiar face with a mask on. That's even more ominous. I finished designing the Australian Flying Corps World War I livery for the Fokker triplane. I in fact uploaded it to the mod site that I use for most of my little upgrades for Flight Sim, and it's up to 30-40 downloads already, which is encouraging for something that's just a little retexture pack of somebody else's plane. And I think once our travels get us up to Tamora again, I will do a stream or two that is me flying the Fokker triplane as a air show that you get to watch from what will essentially be a GoPro strapped to the pilot's head, which is kind of the view that you're getting at the moment. I think I need to work out if I can have a picture-in-picture sort of setup of the view from the ground or from outside the plane, because that could be a fun little addition for that sort of flight especially. I'm actually considering a few different ways that I can upgrade the visuals for the stream. So at the moment we've just got the little pilot window here, and then the rest that way is all just my view into Flight Sim. I'm wondering if I want to add any extra little windows, because so at the moment it's just kind of full screen with one little overlay, but I could do mostly full screen and then, you know, maybe a map in one corner, or all of my checklist document showing up when I'm doing checklists. If people have opinions on that sort of thing and how they might want it to change, not change, upgrade, move, I would be fascinated to hear, because, you know, I am doing this to entertain, fascinate, provide body double company, all these sorts of things. So if people have opinions on what could make it more fun. So, like, for example, I've got a program called Little Nav Map, which lets me show the full VFR maps. So let me just get that such that I can drag it across. So, for example, here is the map of our current flight. I'm just going to make that a little smaller. And it is tracking where we are. It's showing me the topology, the airspaces, the route, the wind, all sorts of fun little additions. This program is also great for planning the route. So this is what I actually planned out this VFR, this GPS path in. So if having that in a window would be of interest to people, I can certainly look at making that one of the upgrades that I do, if I can work out how to have it just show the map. And we are coming up on another one of these points with a lighthouse on it. So this is Little Rame Head, and, well, it's Little Rame Head Lighthouse, so I'm presuming it's Little Rame Head. And you can see it is another one of these. It sticks out into the sailing path if you're following the coast. But this one, it looks like Flight Sim has not modelled our the lighthouse for us. But pretty with little beaches and lots of rocks. Don't try and go surfing on these tiny beaches, because you will just end up on the rocks on every side of the beaches. And you can see it is just forest until it is water. Some of those trees are just growing in sand. Well, it's good to hear that it could be worth trying. We'll see what I can work out with making Little Nav Map only show the things I want it to. There are so many options in Little Nav Map that it's kind of ridiculous, but that is one of the joys. There are other flight sim mapping programs. Navigraph is the most popular one. It's also expensive. Like, if I were doing full-on airliner flights and trying to keep track of every bit of weather and all this, it would be worth having a Navigraph subscription, because that's the thing. It's not just a buy it once and then you have the program. It's a subscription program, which, given the amount that they're adding, I can see why. It's just not quite at the level where I can justify it for what I need, because really, between Little Nav Map and just the inbuilt things with Flight Sim and the Cessna's the Garmin G1000 instrument suite, which is what all this glass is, the extra stuff is not super worth it. And here we have the town and airport of Malakuta. So if we were doing a very short flight, that's where we might be ending up, but we've got a bit further to go, I think. But it's nice to see some proper, like, civilization again. Yes, it is time for another check of the engine instruments. That is all holding where we want. Temperatures are good, fuel is good, outside temperature is fine. Don't need the anti-icing. Thank you for reminding me to check the engines. There's what, a bit more of a proper small airport, airfield should look like. I'm fascinated by how there's one proper tarmac runway and one looks like concrete, which, if you need the crosswind runway for only occasional things where the weather's getting weird, no need to have it to the full spec. And yes, the reason you get crossing runways like that is that taking off and landing with a crosswind is hard, and gets harder the stronger the wind and the smaller the plane. So you don't get operations happening on both runways at once. It's just, if you set up your airport in a place with just one prevailing wind direction, you just build a runway along that strip. Or if you're building in the sort of valley that Mount Beauty is in, you build the runway pointing the only way it can point. And turning to the next waypoint. It's so much more relaxing when you've got a GPS path and manually following the beach yourself, which, I mean, was fun and a good challenge. And here we have the next level of the rock sticks out into the water a bit. The rock sticks out into the water a bit, but the water got behind it as well. So you have this lovely point with an island drop hanging off it, which is even more dangerous for shipping because you sail along and go, oh, I can see some water, and you don't realize that maybe that water is like a meter deep and just rocks. I don't actually know how deep the water is just here, but you can see how much the ground is looking like just a little ridge line that is trying to connect but has been washed away just enough to be underwater. And apparently, this bit of this lagoon slash lake by Malakuta, according to my map here, is called Bottom Lake. I find this amusing. I'm sure it's at the bottom of something, but haha, funny bump name. So, apparently this is called Gabo Island, for whichever pronunciation it might be, but the two features on Gabo Island are Gabo Island Lighthouse, for reasons as discussed, and Gabo Island Airport. Objections to the term airport as also already discussed, but they have, let's see here, a 2,000 foot long grass runway. This is clearly so that no matter what the water is doing, you can get some supplies and, people to the lighthouse. So, instead of your standard lighthouse keeper goes mad from loneliness, it's lighthouse keeper goes mad from having to mow the runway. And we'll get a better view once we're past it rather than almost directly above it. But at some point we might need to do a heavily loaded cargo run out to Gabo Island with their 1,997 foot runway that is grass. Lovely visibility, lovely clear approach paths, but yeah, that runway is a glorified cricket pitch. I really want to land something heavy on that and see if I can manage it. Of course, the trick with that sort of runway is not just landing short enough to not go off the end of it, it's also working out if you can take off again, because most planes will have a shorter landing roll than they will a takeoff roll, which is... Actually, I'm going to take us off the managed heading for a bit, and we're just going to circle back round, because I want to look at this island a little bit more. It's fascinating and fun, and just... it's really telling of the sort of thing where you, like, we've got a solution for this, it's fine. In fact, let's get a little lower as well. Pulling back the power. And yeah, caring for that much grass, like, I've got to assume that that's the only mown bit of grass on Gabo Island. If I was the lighthouse keeper, I would not be mowing a lawn. Like, if I had to take care of that airstrip as my main way of getting food in, I can't say that I mean, I don't mow the lawn I have. So, getting me to mow... Like, okay, I've got to assume that one of the flights to deliver supplies here brought in a ride-on mower. Oh, this one, we've actually got the lighthouse model as well. That's lovely. Just monitoring the instruments as well. But yes, so we've got 2,000 feet of cleared grass. It's this weird green colour too. I'm used, like, proper Aussie grass should be brown. Like, not as an unhealthy thing, it's just the colour that grass goes in summer. The runway lighting systems seem to be turn your landing lights on and, well, finding the airport in general at night, there's a lighthouse. There's your airport lighting. Go slightly to the not water side of the lighthouse. I love this island so much. I wasn't expecting to fall in love with this ridiculous island as we fly past, but I think we're going there at some point in the future. Possibly one of those ones where I put the caravan to its maximum cargo weight again, like we did flying out of Mount Beauty. I think a fully loaded cargo run to deliver, I don't know, maybe the lighthouse keeper wants some new furniture. And also a year's supply of pies. But I am just entranced by this little airstrip. There's one road that leads you down to the lighthouse and the house. And there's some building in the middle of the forest, presumably on some sort of high point. But I am just so delighted by this little airport. And look, we knew that you were signing up for an ADHD stream, so when I get completely distracted like this, it's fine. But yeah, 2,000 feet of grass. Which, you know, the grass, as we saw while taxiing today, would make it easier to stop the plane on landing. And, well, in Mount Beauty, we found that we had to do the full short takeoff procedure to clear the fence at the end of the runway. Here, I think we need to build up enough speed to not fall off the end. Because off both ends of the runway, you've got grass, non-runway grass, cliff. That's such a good little island. I love it so much. Okay, let's get back towards where we were actually going. That is a tangent that distracted me from a different tangent. But yeah, I think when we talk about... I've talked about doing the, you know, rural cargo delivery streams at some point, which I was thinking your standard dusty outback, but I think that's a new candidate for a fun stream for doing a delivery run to somewhere tiny. Okay, checking engine settings as we climb. 98% NG, 1850 RPM. Lovely. Yeah, so previous tangent, I was talking about potentially having other planes in the Martel Air hangar. One of them is I'm looking at the potential of a somewhat larger cargo plane, but not the Like, most freighter planes these days are just converted jet airliners, and that's a little dull. I'm actually considering something like the DHC-4 Caribou, which is a short takeoff and landing rated cargo plane, and it is described by many as an ugly plane. No, the Twin Otter is, I think, the DHC-6. The Caribou is, I mean, it's still in the de Havilland of Canada lineup, but a little bigger. But yes, there's a lot of things in the DHC series that are fascinating little planes and fascinating big planes. Like the Dash 7 and the Dash 8 are in fact the DHC 7 and DHC 8. I'm just pulling up some stats, which means I'm doing even more things on multiple windows. I've not encountered the Falcon 20. I'm going to have to look it up and see if it's also one of the ones that has a flight sim model. Okay, we're back to cruising altitude, so pulling back to 89% NG and 1750 RPM. Also, I have a spreadsheet that is heavily full of NG percentage, true airspeed, and fuel flow per pounds per hour, working out what the cruising speed for maximum range would actually be for this plane. And it gets weird because basically the lower you put it, the more range you get. But it starts to level out. And eventually you're going the same distance, it just takes you longer. It's fun and weird. Okay, pulling up some stats. So, the Grand Caravan, which we're flying, tends to do about 150 to 180 knot cruise true airspeed, depending on altitude. And we'll take... So, maximum... Oh, no, that's not the Grand Caravan, that's the regular Caravan. There are so many different types of Caravan. So, Grand Caravan EX. So, there's the Caravan, and then there's the Grand Caravan, and then there's the Grand Caravan EX. Because they keep upgrading it. EX is the one with the engine upgrade as well. So, the Twin Otter is 2 engines, thus the twin. And let's see here. Payload. It'll take 1,800 kilos for a 100-mile trip, or nearly 1,400 kilos for a 400-mile trip. Which is, you know, a reasonable amount of stuff. The Grand Caravan, maximum payload 1,400 kilos and similar ranges. So the Twin Otter is actually, which is the DHC-6, is actually kind of on par in terms of size with the Grand Caravan, which is one of the reasons that I've not put it into the list of, oh, maybe I'll get this for my second plane. And it has, honestly, a fairly similar cruising speed with its 2 engines compared to the Caravan's 1. But then there's the Caribou, which, as mentioned, some people keep calling ugly. I actually have fond associations with the Caribou just because of weird, tiny childhood associations. Basically, my dad had a squadron shirt that had the Caribou on it, and it was... Look, judging from how much I saw this t-shirt, it was one of his favourites. So I've got all of these childhood associations with a picture of the Caribou. It is a twin turboprop, short takeoff and landing cargo plane. Like, the crew specifications for it are 2+ Loadmaster. Capacity 30 passengers or 32 troops or 26 paratroops or 22 stretchers, 4 sitting patients and 4 medical attendants. Maximum payload 4,000 kilos. Cruise speed of about 160 knots, which is slightly faster than the Caravan. Stall speed of 59 knots, which is, in plain terms, walking speed. I think it's actually slightly slower stall speed than the Caravan. And one of the reasons that the Caribou is considered so ugly is actually the way that it is set up for short takeoff and landing things. Because, look, short takeoff and landing makes a plane, like, there's a lot of things you have to be able to do a short takeoff and landing. And one of those things is not hit the tail. Let's see if I can get a picture of this that you can see. And I am juggling windows so much to be able to do this. And here we have another one of our little points with roads leading to a lighthouse. Let's see. And you can see the little cluster of buildings. That is the lighthouse. This is tangent upon tangent. But the DHC-4 Caribou. Here we go. It is, like, that tail is a lot of the reason that people think it's ugly, I think. But you can pull up pretty hard and not hit the tail. And with the size of it, you can tell the plane to point in a direction, and it points that direction. It's got chunky landing gear. It's very boxy because it's designed to be filled with boxes. And yeah, it's designed... That is the super freighter of bush pilots. And I think at some point I'm going to be getting one of those for the Martel Air cargo line, let's say. Because the Grand Caravan is also one that is used for cargo transport. A lot of them are actually seen in FedEx livery. But there's something about just rocking up on a bush strip in a Caribou that says Santa is here. Now, what's the Falcon 20 that was referred in chat? I love the ridiculous amount of types of plane that there are that just show up when you're looking for weird things. So, Falcon 20, a French business jet designed by Dassault Aviation. If that's the same... Falcon 20, then I mean, doing a business jet side would be an interesting side run. I have done some practice flights in the Cessna Citations CJ4, which is, it's sure speedy, and it seats about as many people as the Caravan does. Just, you know, in slightly nicer surroundings, and you'll get there sooner. Thank you, Lamington. It is indeed time to check the instruments. Fuel's good, temperature's good. Engine settings are basically as I left them. Lovely. And yes, the Caribou can indeed be described as a shape. I think that's one of the reasons I love it. It's just so ridiculous. Like, that tail is enormous and a tower. It's like the medieval sailing ships, where they've just built a castle on the back, which is why you get the forecastle and aftercastle. And, you know, forecastle is now the forecastle. But yeah, they were basically wooden castles built on the decks, because all of your, like, before the advent of anti-ship cannons, where you only had anti-personnel cannons and handguns and bows, yeah, you basically just had boarding actions and shooting at each other before the boarding action. So the Caribou is a plane with an aftercastle, and I love it so much. I might have to, if I download, well, buy and download the Caribou mod, I think I would actually need to crenellate the tail just to make it a proper aftercastle. So, where are we up to? Another one of the endless bits of land sticking out. And we have a town. Aha, this is Eden. Because when people are showing up in... So we are across into New South Wales by now. And that being Eden means that that next town along is Merimbula. So somehow we've nearly gotten to where we were going without, well, for one thing, without me finding time for the usual in-flight poetry reading, which I'm sure I can save the poem and the associated info dumping about some Australian trees for next time. But yeah, so people love to just show up in Australia and give things idyllic names like Eden. And in fact, this whole region is in Monaro. I'm pretty sure this is in Monaro, given that it's got Eden. But yes, people love the poetic names for, oh, isn't this bit of the coast lovely? And we've managed to gather even more clouds, which is, you know, giving a bit of texture to the sky. One of the things about the Australian, it's very sunny sort of days, is that the sky just has no texture, which is always a bit weird. But as we get in towards Merimbula here, I think we're going to do a proper general aviation style approach rather than the autopilot assisted just follow the path directly to the runway, because that's sounding a bit more fun, especially after how much more interesting the landing at Orbost was compared to the landing in other places. Although I'm pretty sure that Merimbula has an actual runway. Just pulling up information on it. Yeah. 5,266 feet of some sort of paving. Basically, runways are rated as hard or soft. So, soft will be like Gabo Island Lighthouse, 2,000 foot cricket pitch that we saw, and hard is normal. Yes, the height of luxury, just, there's an actual runway. We'll see if it has any airport facilities. Scrolling one window, scrolls both. Oh, it's a lit runway. Longest runway, 5,266 feet long, 101 feet wide, and its headings are 21 degrees and 201 degrees magnetic, surface bituminous. So, there's tarmac. Bitumen, known to me as asphalt, known to Americans as asphalt, which sounds like that they're blaming somebody's butt. Again, we're back to Bottom Lake before. It's your own asphalt. So, always makes me giggle when I hear asphalt instead of asphalt. I don't know why Australians pronounce it asphalt. The H is on the P, not the S, so asphalt is technically more representative of what's written, but it is ground up bits of rock in a thick slurry of tar. And I can see the runway dead ahead of us because the autopilot is in fact aiming us for the centre of the airport, but I'm going to take us over off of the autopilot and take us in on an actual general aviation approach. Making sure we don't overspeed as we descend. That's always a trick. And then we will do traffic pattern. Merimbula traffic, Martel 09, overflying the airport, entering a left-hand traffic pattern, inbound to land, runway 03. So, a left-hand traffic pattern means that when we do our turns, we are turning left. And basically how a traffic pattern works is you've got the downwind leg, which is flying parallel to the runway and in its opposite direction, as we're just pulling in to do now. And then once we've got past the end of the runway enough to make a good turn, we will turn for the base leg, which is where we fly perpendicular to the runway, kind of towards it. And then you've got the final, which is the bit where you turn towards the runway and try to hit it gently. Okay. I forgot the seatbelt signs. Everybody should strap in. Approach checklist. Seatbelt lights on. Should have done that. I should have done the approach checklist before we entered the pattern. Landing lights on. Fuel tank selectors both on. Fuel condition high idle. Prop RPM to max. Flaps to approach position. Yep, landing lights are on. Brakes are off. Inertial separator handle. Bypass. And we turn for the base leg. And try to get a visual contact on the airport. There we go. Turning more. Merimbula traffic. Martel 09 turning final. Runway 03 to land. And the downwind was not quite perfectly aligned, so we actually got a little close. So we just adjust. Final approach checklist. Autopilot off. Seatbelt lights on. Flaps to land. Airspeed 75 to 85. So this is not a perfect general aviation traffic pattern approach, but it's more practice and, well, we've not crashed yet. Yes, so here we have a bituminous hard runway, which is why it's black, which has the threshold marks, which are the narrow stripies right at the end. Then we've got the numbers, which are the runway heading rounded to 10 degrees. And then we've got the little stripes of the 500 foot mark. And the big stripes are the 1,000 foot marks, or the touchdown zone. So you actually want to hit not on the numbers, but on the 1,000 foot marks. So there's threshold marks, numbers, 500 foot mark, and the 1,000 foot mark. The reason you don't aim for the numbers is if you hit like I hit, you know, maybe 50 feet short of the 1,000 foot marks there. If you aim for the numbers and you hit 100 or 200 feet short, you're having a bad day. If you hit 200 feet short of the 1,000 foot marks, you're hitting at 800 feet. That's still fine. Like that, so that's distance from the end of the runway. Okay. After landing, flaps up, anti-ice off, standby alt power off, watching the runway, inertial separator to bypass, landing lights off, oh no, landing lights are off and strobe lights off as we leave the runway. And now we check our little map here. There is in fact not a taxiway past where we started, so we do a lovely tight turn with wheel braking. I love how tight this thing will turn. It will essentially spin on either one of its main wheels. So the reason that you don't turn off the landing and strobe lights until you leave the runway is that it's the easiest way for other planes to see you, and if you're on the runway, that's where planes that are flying will see you, and you need to be visible from as far as possible. On the taxiways, it's only planes that are taxiing that need to see you, hopefully. And also, you've got ground staff. So you turn off the massively bright high beams that are landing lights and the massively bright flashing lights that is the strobe. Merimbula traffic, Martel 09 is clear of the runway. So you turn these off, landing lights and strobe, once you're clear of the runway and only dealing with planes on the ground. And yeah, you turn them off as you leave the runway, and you turn them on before you enter the runway. Before taxi checklist, taxi lights on, seatbelt lights on, taxi clearance. This is a uncontrolled airport, inertial separator to bypass, prop RPM to minimum, fuel condition low idle. Attention passengers, we've landed safely in Merimbula, and the local time is 1:19 PM. Please remain seated until the plane comes to a complete stop at whatever ridiculous parking spot I end up picking, because queuing for the exit in an 8-seater makes you look even more ridiculous than normal. Okay, let's find ourselves a parking spot. Over there. We've got these lovely yellow lines to show us the taxiway. And the thing about these marked taxiways is you can trust that they're not going to be driving you into a pole. Ah, we've got somebody here guiding us into a grass parking spot. That's exciting. So no air traffic control, but we do have some ground control. What fun. Slightly more power to get a little further forward, and this person is just hearing the engine rev up as we go towards them, and we are at our parking spot. Shutdown checklist. Parking brake set. Oh, at some point the yoke disappeared. Power lever to idle. Bleeder heat switch is off. ITT range stable. Prop RPM feather. Fuel condition cut. And the engine winds down. Inertial separator to normal. External lights off. Seatbelt light off. Attention passengers, this now concludes our flight from Orbost to Merimbula, and we here at Martel Air hope you've enjoyed your time in our tiny sky bus. Please wait until I've opened the door and you can calmly deplane in an orderly fashion. Our baggage handling services today will be provided by our wonderful passengers, so thank you for not leaving any of your luggage behind. Any personal belongings left behind as you leave the plane will be assumed to be a present to the pilot and co-pilot and enjoyed thoroughly. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. So, internal lights off. NG0 check. Avionics 2 off. Avionics 1 off. Battery off. And fuel tank selectors both off. Shutdown checklist complete. So that brings us to a nice park and landing here at Merimbula. While an absolutely tiny little plane taxis off for the runway, sounding like a tractor. And we've got a little amphibious sports plane parked next to us, which is cute and tiny. So it'll be interesting seeing where I work out for us to go next time, and we might get to the poem I was going to be reading out, but didn't end up having time for amongst all of the other ADHD and getting distracted by Gabo Island. Gabo, Gabo. I'm going to go with Gabo because it feels the easiest to say. Hopefully you've enjoyed my ramblings today, and if you've come up with any other things you want me to ramble about in future streams, then send me a comment or other message on the YouTube or in the chat, and I'll see what I can research and ramble about. Today was going to have ramblings about the Australian eucalypt group of species called ironbark trees, which are a ridiculous type of tree, but that will have to wait for next week. Did that guy decide not to take off? Just doing some taxi practice? What's going on here? Just showing somebody a good time with taxi practice, I guess. Yep. Great. That was weird. Okay, I'm gonna say that's a good spot to end things at, I think. And then the ending button is that button.